Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for our candidate forum for the St. Augustine Port, Waterway, and Beach District. My name is Jen Lumberg, and I am your Matanzas Riverkeeper. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Matanzas Riverkeeper organization, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting the health of the Guana, Talamado, and Matanzas rivers and their watersheds through advocacy, education, and community engagement. So as a 501c3 organization, Matanzas Riverkeeper cannot endorse political candidates, but we can and will help to educate voters about the issues and the candidates, as we're doing with the forum this evening. So a couple of housekeeping items before we get started here. All audio for audience members is currently turned off. If you're connected using the Zoom app, we encourage you to ask questions by using the questions tab at the bottom of your screen at any time throughout the forum. If you want to access that question tab, just hover your mouse at the bottom of your screen. It should pop up, and then the question box should open up for you. Please direct all of your questions to all of the candidates. Due to a limited amount of time, we might not be able to answer all of them, but we're going to try. This candidate forum is also being recorded and is going to be uploaded to our website, which is www.matanzasriverkeeper.org, for anyone who's not able to attend the live session this evening. So to get us started, we thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of information about what exactly the St. Augustine Port, Waterway, and Beach District actually is. So the district is a governmental entity created by state law back in the 1930s in order to promote and facilitate the development of St. Augustine as the major center for commercial and recreational marine activity in Northeast Florida. So the district works on projects such as dredging and maintaining channels and inlets, installing waterfront infrastructure, printing navigational maps, and so on and so forth. The district also has taxing authority. So if you're a property owner within the district, you likely pay between $10 and $20 per year on your property tax bill to the district. And this money funds things like equipment and infrastructure for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the fire department, things like repairing buoys and channel markers, planting sea oats for shoreline stabilization, that kind of thing. So as you can see, the district does really important work, but we found that a lot of people weren't really familiar with the work that the district does. So we decided to host this candidate forum in order to give a little bit of background about the district and also to provide an opportunity for voters to learn about who the candidates are in order to help to inform your votes in November. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce the candidates. So there are two seats, or groups as they're called, for the election in November. There's group 2 and group 4 that are up for election. So for group 2, we have Mr. Nick Baldwin, Mr. Marco Klobanish, Miss Lindsay Lauren, Mr. Bobby Stewart, and Miss Jane West. And for group 4, we have Mr. Roy Jager and Mr. Christopher Way, who is currently the incumbent for that seat. So this November, you as a voter will have the opportunity to vote for one candidate from each group. So keep that in mind as we're moving through the forum. Please note that all candidates from both seats were invited to participate in the forum this evening. Unfortunately, a couple of them have decided to rescind their candidacy, and a couple of them we were not able to get in contact with. So a couple of candidate rules to let you know how we're going to move forward this evening. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. The order in which the candidates will answer the questions is going to be rotating alphabetically. That way each candidate has the opportunity to answer a question first. The candidates have been asked to direct all responses to me, the moderator, and not to engage with any other candidates. And we're going to keep the candidates automatically muted unless answering a question in order to minimize background noise. So with that, we will jump right in to our first question. And basically, we just want an introduction at this point. So please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for the St. Augustine Port, Waterway, and Beach District. And we will move over to Mr. Roy Jager to get us started.
Hi there. Jen, thank you so much for doing this. I know that you've been probably, in my experience, you've been doing more as the riverkeeper than most of your predecessors. And it just shows the level of interest that you have. My background has been in the marine industry all my life, it seems. I worked with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. I was directing the marine terminal activities. We were a landlord port, and we had hundreds of $millions of real estate that I was responsible for. And then after leaving the Port Authority, I had retired, and then I set up my own consulting business, and that was also international consulting. I was working with ports around the world and helping them build their cargo facilities, change cargo facilities, etc. So that's a very brief description of what I've done. And as far as why I'm interested in running for this, it's in my DNA. I've always been involved in the maritime industry. And moving to St. Augustine about 20 years ago, I watched the Port Commission. I watched things that were going on. I reviewed the charter from time to time. And it just seemed to me there were many more things that could be done to benefit both commercial and recreational activities on the water. As far as the recreational end, since coming to St. Augustine, I've also been very involved. I was involved in the 450th commemoration. I also I'm the past Commodore of the St. Augustine Yacht Club, and an associate of mine and myself started the St. Augustine Maritime Heritage Foundation, which brought the boat ashore for Menendez for the 450th.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Jager. There's your timer. So now we will step over to Mr. Clovanish.
Hello. 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 Can you hear me?
Yep, you are good to go, sir.
So my name is Marco Clovanish, and I am running for the position in order to enhance, I want to serve the public according to laws and the constitutional decisions. And also I want to look out for the future generations of our children and protect the waterways and the oceans and everything that we can to come together to also blanket the taxpayers and the people of St. Augustine so we can best prevent any future pollutions or future cares for the oceans by making the best decisions for all of the citizens and do it according to the Constitution of the United States and the state laws. So this way it would to better serve the public.
Thank you, Mr. Clovanish. With that, we will move to Miss Jane West.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Jen. I love the work that the Matanzas Riverkeeper has been doing over the years. It's very exciting stuff. And I'm very jealous of your office down there at Gunun's Fish Camp. I am Jane West. I am currently the Policy and Planning Director for 1000 Friends of Florida, which is a growth management watchdog organization based out of Tallahassee. But I have my offices here in St. Augustine, actually in the Cathedral building. I've been living in St. Augustine for about a decade, and I am a passionate environmental and land use attorney. I've been practicing for about 22 years and have been very involved in numerous dredge and fill projects throughout the state. Currently one over in Sarasota, one down in Palm Beach County where we were successfully able to save 7 acres of coral reef from being covered with sedimentation from the dredging operation. And I was also involved in the Jacksport dredging of the St. Johns River. I'm a former member of the St. Augustine Yacht Club, and actually my 2 sons, ages 11 and 12, have been in the youth sailing program at the yacht club for years now. So we've spent a lot of time out on Salt Run. I love this place. I love the water. Here it is incredibly special, but it's also very much at risk. We have issues pertaining to sea level rise that we need to be resilient for going forward in the future. We have a lot of access issues in terms of boat ramps being shut down for far too long. I'm a boat owner myself, and I love spending time out on the water, but I really do not like dealing with the congestion that you see at the lighthouse and you see in the boat ramps. So I do think we need to increase access for not only motorboats, but also kayak launches as well. And then I'd like to get rid of all the derelict boats that we have in our intercoastal waterway. They're not only dangerous for our boaters, but they are unsightly and contribute to the pollution of our natural resources. There's a lot for this particular agency to do for our local residents, and I view this as a wonderful opportunity to explore everything that we're able to do under our current charter, including increasing the jurisdictional boundaries of the district.
Thank you, Ms. West. And to wrap up question 1, Mr. Christopher Way, please introduce yourself.
Yes, Jen, my name's Christopher Way. I've grew up in St. Augustine my whole life. I've plied these waters, surfing, skiing, diving, fishing, and St. Augustine's in my blood. I've owned and operated several restaurants in St. Augustine. Fortunately, I got out of that business about 2 years ago, just in time. I've started no profile boat lifts. We build the Rolls Royce of boat lifts and build and ship them all over the world. My wife, Pam, is an environmental scientist with the St. Johns River Water Management. She's been an environmental scientist there for 30 years. I have a daughter, Ashley, who's an emergency room nurse, and 2 granddaughters, Bennett and Scout. I am a licensed captain. I've got extensive knowledge, not only in the marine industry, but just in business in general. I've started 5 or 6 restaurants. I started a Culinary Outfitters when it was a catering company. And then I've been running Way Marine Design for about 16 years. I know our waters, I know the community, and I know what Jane had referred to as the explosion in boats. It's incredible. When I was in high school and we would launch our boat at the lighthouse, we would pull the trailer out of the water and never leave the ramp. We would just park our truck and lock it on the ramp. So I live on the bayfront here, directly across from the fort. And it's just what's happened in the last 10 years is just mind-boggling as far as boat ownership.
Thank you, Mr. Way. Wow, I can't imagine what would happen now if somebody were to just leave their truck parked on the boat ramp nowadays. I'm sure that the authorities would have to come in and remedy that. All right, so moving forward to our second question of the evening, and that is, if elected, what would your top 3 priorities for the district be? And so this time we will have Mr. Klobanish start us off. Marco, you're still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, yeah, sometimes it's a delay. So if elected, that's the question. If elected, what would the top 3 priorities for the district be? Obviously, the safety of its citizens and the safety of the people is pretty much first and foremost. Bring integrity. I would also bring integrity to the district. And I would have the safety. I would ensure the safety. I would make the best decisions based off of integrity for all the the citizens, and the security of certain waterways in certain areas, to make people have a sense of, their personal causation and sense of knowing that it's going to be safe if they want to travel and if they want to do certain things on the waterways. And just offer all of the, I would bring, a sense of morality to it for the best interest of the citizens and the people. So I would say safety, integrity, security, and honesty. So that's what I would do.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Clovanish. Now we will go to Miss Jane West. If elected, what would your top 3 priorities for the district be?
Thanks, Jen. My top 3 priorities for the district, as I mentioned in my introduction, first and foremost, I'd really like to work on increasing the jurisdictional boundaries of the district. If you go to the district's website and click on a map of the district, it naturally encompasses a broad swath of intercoastal waterway in pink, but then for some reason on the western side of the intercoastal, it seems to stop right where Kings Estate Road is, north of Wildwood Drive. If you were just to draw a straight line right across into the shores, into the intercoastal waterway, it ends there. So everything south all the way down to Flagler County on that side of the intercoastal is not within the jurisdictional purview of the district, and it should be, because you have a lot of people in the shores and St. Augustine South that use our waterways quite a bit. And if we were able to get that jurisdictional boundary increase, we would be able to increase access for them, which is my second priority. Increasing boat ramp access and making sure that we do it in a safe manner. Like you've seen a boat ramp right now is just a congestion nightmare, especially with May Street being one of the primary ingress and egresses over to Volano Beach. You've got a lot of congestion there without any sort of traffic light, and you've got these trailers pulling out into two-way traffic, and it creates a dangerous situation. If we were to increase our existing boat ramp usage, make it safe, I would definitely make that a priority. For those of you who don't know, we only have in all of St. Johns County, and think about all the water that we only have 14 boat ramps in the entire county, and 3 of those are fresh water. So only 11 points of access for saltwater boat ramps, and that just is not enough for our exploding population here in the county. So I think we need to increase that, and we need to make sure it's safe. And then I would work with our other local government partners to make sure that we are addressing things like nuisance flooding and storm surge. For those of you who had to live through Hurricane Matthew, this city really took a major, major hit. And so we need to think about resiliency. We need to do it not only for future generations, but we need to make sure that we're protecting our clean waterways. If we have all that sewage outflow going as a result of sea level rise right into our intercoastal, that does not make for a very clean waterway in which to harvest oysters. So it's all connected, and those would be my top 3 priorities, Jen.
Thank you, Miss West. Mr. Christopher Way, if elected, what would your top 3 priorities for the district be? Oh, Mr. Way, I'm going to need you to unmute yourself.
Okay, got me?
Yes, sir.
Well, certainly one of my priorities is to also look into the expanding our district. We have a lot of people from the northwest part of the county. You can go to the Volano boat ramp and look at the license tags, and you'll see a huge amount of them from Duval County. I know getting that changed will be a process. The other possibility, I've seen it done in Tampa, where they have a kiosk, and you pay $3 or whatever to launch your boat. Now these are manned; they have somebody there that's keeping track of the ramp, and I'm telling you, it's pretty efficient. That's another possibility, but top priority is to expand our coverage. The other thing too, people have got to understand about our board is that we don't have any boots on the ground. We don't have staff. We don't have trucks. We don't have the ability to directly make things happen. So the biggest thing for me is to continue to support all the Marine divisions and law enforcement, Sheriff's Department, FWC, Marine Patrol, Police Department. They all have a presence on the water. And we have a really good relationship with them now, I believe. And I would want to continue to support them because they're the ones that make the stuff happen. We're the ones that can possibly provide funding. The other thing I wanted to do is the same thing is we got to expand boat ramps. We got to have a few more locations, and all that takes a lot of money. Another point I'm wanting to do is to look at our reserve. Right now we have about $2.2 million in reserve, and the big elephant in the room for our charter is to maintain the navigability of the inlet. So there's has to be a pretty big chunk of cash we have to have in reserve, but I'd like to pursue that further and find out what is the magic number to have in reserve, because I believe that we could free up a lot of that money we have in reserve to make things happen more with more boat ramps, more accessibility. But that needs to be determined is how much do we have to have in reserve to protect the inlet. So those would be my three top priorities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Way. And to round out question 2, Mr. Roy Jager, if elected, what would your top 3 priorities for the district be?
Well, I think I just muted myself here.
Nope, you are good to go. We can hear you loud and clear. Okay,
good. Well, actually, there's a lot of overlap with priorities here, listening to the other candidates. And one of mine really touches on something a little bit different, and that's public access to our waterways. I agree. I'm by the boat ramps all the time. I have a boat. I see what happens. I see some of the fights that break out, the danger that exists at the boat ramps, particularly on a weekend. But we also have to think of public access. There isn't really sufficient public access in the county to get down to our waterways. The most obvious one is the ocean, and but it happens too in the intercoastal waterway as well. The second point that I want to emphasize very strongly, I believe in intra-harbor transportation by water. We are kidding ourselves with what's happening in St. Johns County and the explosive growth that people are coming into our city here. They can't move, it's congested, they can't get around town. They try to add buses to bring people into the old city. But we have this beautiful navigable waterway with federally maintained channels, and we can't get people from the old city over to Anastasia Island or to Bolano. We had kind of a half-baked attempt at doing a water taxi last year with a 6-passenger water taxi, and the captain had his dog. So I don't know whether that cut it down to 5 or not. But we really have to look at this seriously. We must create intra-harbor transportation. Every other major waterfront city in the world has done that, and I don't know why we can't do this. And the other thing I want to pick up on is what Jane was talking about. Again, with our ramps, I think we have to go a little bit further with the ramps. I think that we have to build new ramps. I think there are several locations that are adaptable, and I also agree that most of the people using the ramps are coming in from Flagler County. They're coming out from Palatka and places like that and crowding up our city. So that's my 3 points, just to say again, is intra-harbor transportation, the public access, and build and manage more boat ramps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Jager. With that, we will move on to question number 3. And that is, in your view, what does the district currently do well and what could be improved upon? And so this time we will have Miss Jane West to get us started.
Sure, thanks, Jen. I think what the district does very well is work with local law enforcement. The FWC, Sheriff's Office, and also its county partners, they really do a great job of reporting back. They are highly engaged with the district, and I think there's a really good relationship there, as Chris already alluded to. And I'm hoping that we can continue to build on that, get them the funds that they need in order to do their job sufficiently, because the growth here is exponential, and they need all the resources they can get. They do a great job, and they do a great job of reporting back to the district, and that feedback that we get from them is absolutely critical to the decisions that the district makes. So I think that's what they do very well. In terms of what can be improved upon, quite frankly, I think the public discourse in the meetings, quite frankly, the procedure in the meetings needs to be refined. Right now, it's a little chaotic, and it could use some streamlining and a little bit more procedural due process, so that everyone's views get heard, but in a way that is professional and respectful from both the board and the public and our attorneys and our contractors, like our engineer. So I think building in more professionalism and respect into how the meetings are conducted is really, really important. Also, being able to have more access to the district's own documents and work products, such as our own engineering work product. We should be able to have easy access to that without having to go through the rigmarole of making public records requests. So those are the things that I think need a lot of work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. West. Mr. Christopher Way, in your view, what does the district currently do well, and what could be improved on?
Well, Jane put it very politically with describing some of our current meetings we've had in the last 6 or 8 months. I highly encourage anyone to come in and see what's happening there on occasion. You know, I'm not looking for political gain. I don't have other eyes on other offices, and I thought I could help out in a relatively calm commission, but it's gotten a little bit crazy. I concur. The things that I think the port does real well is we work good with all the local entities, with the city, county, fire departments, police departments. We do what we can to fund them on worthy projects. The other thing that I think we do well is work with FIND, the Florida Intercoastal Navigation District, with Carl Blow. He spearheads a lot of big projects that can help get funding, matching funds, not only from us, but the county and city. And I enjoy working with Carl. He's very, very competent, and have a good relationship with him. The other thing that I mentioned in the 3 priorities was also, and what we need to do better is just to reiterate the coming up with the magic number that we keep in reserve, and see if we can't free up some of that money we have in reserve to do some of these things. As far as the transportation and the water taxis, I've noticed that there's been quite a big increase in boats. I see them go by my house every day. The thing that we've got to be careful with as the board is we can help fund these things. We can't run them. We can't own them. We've had commissioners recommend that we buy a barge and rent it out when we're not using it. And, you know, all those things on a business side is a horrible idea. So the things that I feel that we've got to do to improve on is keep in mind that the board really can only help fund things. We can't run it. We couldn't run a dock. We couldn't run a barge. We can't run a business. And, you know, making facilities available for water taxis is a great idea, but it would have to be overseen, or the city or the county is going to have to spearhead that, and then get support from the Port and Waterway.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Way. And to round out question 3, Mr. Marco Clovanish, in your view, what does the district currently do well and what can be improved upon?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, currently what the district does well is they do a good job at hiding and staying in the gray area and going along with the status quo as far as where money and funds and things are directed. They're good at hiding all that stuff because when I went and I found out and I did some research that they took a bridge, an older bridge, they claim to want to protect the oceans and the sea level rises. But I mean, that's just a way and a loophole to channel money, in my opinion, by focusing on a sea level rise, because there's no documented evidence. I mean, there's not enough good evidence that the sea level rises. It rises in different locations at all different times of the year and different every 10-year cycles. It goes up, it goes down. We're actually in the past adding more beaches because I go to the beach all the time and there's way more land than there was when I first got here. So what currently they're doing is they took $500,000 of the taxpayers' money and they took a bridge, some kind of bridge that is filled with, it was 100 years old or over 100 years old, and it had all this, the gasoline and the oil and all that stuff that's embedded from cars driving over this bridge. And they currently dumped it 11, and when I say dumped it, I mean dumped it 11 miles off the coast. So that costs $500,000 for them to do that. But none of them had accountability or responsibility or took any credit for it, because it was obviously not a good move because of the pollution. But how they did it was they were able to do it and stay off the radar by taking it into international waters. So if the water became polluted or all those pollutants came out and did some damage to the water, nobody was responsible for it. So they hid that pretty well. So then when you ask them, well, who's responsible for this? Whose district is it in? Nobody has any, it's not in anybody's district, but they claim to call it a reef. And they said that that's what they did. They titled it, "We're making a reef off the coast." Well, I doubt that, you're going to make a reef with polluted concrete and bridge water, because, that's never good for the environment. So I think the old status quo, they do very well with sticking to the status quo and finding loopholes and ways around it. So you could take $500,000 of the taxpayers' money, but for the past 10 years, the roads have gotten more and more treacherous all throughout the county. Now we're talking about building access points.
Mr. Clovanish, you're a little bit over time, so if you could wrap it up so we could stay.
Okay, so we can't build access points and places to the beach for more public to get on when we can't even take care of the roads that we have now to even get to the accesses, because our roads are treacherous. So that's what I would do, and that's what I would improve on, is stopping the fraud, the waste, and the abuse. That's all.
Thank you for your response. With that, we will move on to our 4th question of the evening. And that is, how can the district balance its mission of promoting commercial and recreational marine activity while ensuring the protection of our natural resources? And this time we will have Miss Jane West to start us off. Oh, Jane, I think I accidentally remuted you after I unmuted you.
Okay, are we good now? Okay, so I would just like to point out that our natural resources here in St. Johns County are incredible. It is why people come to the county in the first place. So if we are able to protect those resources through education and outreach, that is going to basically save St. Johns County. This is an absolute treasure, not only for recreational opportunities, but it supports an incredibly diverse economic engine here in the county. We have commercial fishermen, we have recreational fishermen, we have harvestable oyster beds here in St. Johns County, which is very unique, and that is because we have clean water in the Matanzas. So protecting our natural resources is of utmost importance, and we do that through educating the public. I think that a lot of people, a long time people who've been here in St. Augustine for their entire lives know the value of our clean natural resources and our clean waterways. It's our visitors that we need to hone in on and make sure that they understand that when they go out on a boat and they flip out a plastic bag or a plastic water bottle, that is incredibly detrimental not only to the environment, but also to our local economy. We need clean water in order for our economy to survive. So it is a delicate balance, but making sure that the protection of our natural resources is of utmost priority is really the way to focus on this issue. And from that, we can continue with the economic growth and continue to enjoy the recreational opportunities out there on the water.
Thank you, Ms. West. Mr. Christopher Way, in your opinion, how can the district balance promoting commercial and recreational marine activity while ensuring the protection of our natural resources?
Well, as I said, I've grown up here and I've seen just incredible change and growth in the city. I wouldn't personally, as a board member, I wouldn't do anything that I thought would negatively affect our environment or our waterways or anything. That goes without saying. The biggest thing is between the commercial and recreational is the same thing that we've touched on, is supporting the people who patrol the waters, the Sheriff's Department, FWC that inspects commercial fishing boats, make sure they're not over fishing the limit or doing things illegal. And all of that has to be done from other entities. The Sheriff's Department, we've got to support them. They come to us all the time with requests for funding, and based on what the request is and what we can afford to do with our small budget, is we look at carefully. We've got to keep all the channel markers, all the navigation stuff that the Coast Guard does not perform, and that's salt run, access and entries to the boat ramps, the dredging, and also to maintain the inlet. We'll never have, our inlet will never be a major port. So we're always going to be kind of the red-haired stepchild. When we have markers that are missing or moved during storms, it could take the Coast Guard a year to get to us because their bigger priorities are the major ports. So, supporting our law enforcement and all the people that get out there and do the work is what we have to do as the board, and make sure we spend our limited budget in the right place.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Way. Mr. Roy Jager, same question. Oh, Mr. Jager, I'm going to need you to unmute yourself. There we go.
Took me a little bit. I apologize. But just to pick up on something that Chris said, I mean, we are very lucky to have the law enforcement that we do to, follow up on things and basically help to keep some level of order. The other thing that I see on the commercial side, I mean, we have a lot of commercial development that's starting to take place. You're seeing some new waterfront restaurants starting to pop up now and things like that. And I know in the past when, I had other experiences, when we had commercial changes and commercial development, we would have kind of a quid pro quo. And the commercial development would make concessions to the recreational development so that it could accommodate both the recreational as well as the commercial. And I think that's a good thing to do. I think we have to operate as a team. We can't operate against, we can't say we and they. It has to be really developed. These projects have to be developed as a team. The other thing that really plays into this is the environmental aspect of it. Jane said that we're lucky we have good environmental quality to our water and things like that, but that will not be here forever unless we really protect our estuaries. We really watch what's happening with in-ground seepage, septic systems and things like that. So it's very important that we, on the commercial and on the government end, that we have laws in place that protect our environment in the future, because we want to be able to eat oysters 10 years from now as well. The other thing that I'm very sensitive to, and I see it all the time in my travels around the waterway, is wake zone enforcement. And we need to do a better job. And Jen, your area is a perfect example of that. I mean, that whole wake zone should start another 300 yards before it starts, you know, because wake zone, it just, wakes are really damaging a lot of private property. I guess the last thing that I would have with this is I would like to see my point when I talked about the water transportation. I was talking about a water transportation system, Chris, not a water taxi. Mine would be a scheduled service that would run from point to point and would have stops just like a bus has stops. And I know it'll take a long time to develop. It's probably going to take federal money in order to do something like that. But we're kidding ourselves if we think we can go on moving people around on the roadways that we have when we have those federally maintained navigable waterways.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Jager. And I apologize. I just realized that I skipped you for question 3. We have a lot of questions coming in the chat box, so I'm trying to write them down while I'm going through the current questions. So right after Mr. Klobanish answers question 4, we'll jump back to you and give you an opportunity to answer that one. I'm really sorry about that.
Okay. I kind of wound my last answer into that, so that's okay.
All right, so to round out question 4, Mr. Marco Klobanish, how do you balance the district's mission with protecting our natural resources?
So basically, you have to be really good at like managing conflicting uses. So you have to, you know, there's certain ways that, like with the zoning and accountability, who's liable, compensation in certain areas, as far as like setting strong boundaries for people that do damage or happen to, you know, destroy something by accidentally dumping or using things illegally. So, you know, take a look at different places in as far as like the zoning, because a lot of times well, one of the main things I want to do is raise more concern for like externalities, as far as like people making decisions, and like how the other candidate was talking about, you know, there's more and more people, there's more and more restaurants coming in on the waterfront. So if we take a regulatory approach and raise the concern, because a lot of people don't know unless they're told. I mean, there's a lot of times where, you know, I don't know I'm doing something wrong until somebody says, hey, you know, that's not good. I mean, that's happened to me a couple of times. I'm sure it's happened to everybody, whether it's, you know, a traffic sign on the road, or, you know, when you go into a certain zone, you got to drop down to 45 mile an hour. So if we raise certain concerns to these businesses and we actually get active in our approach as far as the Waterway, Port Beach, I mean, yeah, that's what we're going to do. But a lot of times we can raise public awareness, which in my opinion is the best way to do it, because it's important for people to know if they're doing something wrong in certain situations. So, you know, like let me give you an example, kind of like the zoning for your house, or pulling a certificate, or pulling a pulling a permit to build something on your house. You know, when I moved to Florida, there was a lot of things that I couldn't do that I was able to do in Virginia. And, you know, I really didn't know. And it's kind of hard to go ask, because certain times it's like, you have to find out through who? The public, through the neighbors, through people around you. So in order for us to raise that awareness, we have to let people know. I mean, it's our duty, it's our responsibility. I would be active in getting people to the meetings that we have every month, and I would get them off, you know, their Facebook, and I would get a lot of people involved, because I do have a huge following on Facebook and a huge one on all the social media. I mean, I have over 60,000 followers on Twitter, and my two Facebooks are maxed out. So I would definitely raise more concerns as far as people for public awareness. And if the funds are short, then you just have a fundraiser and you find out other ways and think outside of the box in order to raise more money for certain things that we need to do. I mean, there's a way to get people excited about protecting the environment instead of sounding like the same old status quo. I'm going to do this for that. I mean, that's what everybody says. I mean, Greta Thunberg, all these people, they all sound the same. But there's a way you can do it and get people excited to want to do it and want to be a part of it. And the first thing for me starts with the very basic parts. A very basic part of a city is the roads. If you can't fix your own roads, how are we going to fix the oceans and the boats and the fishermen? We got to start somewhere. So in order to do that, the best way to raise awareness and get people to pay attention to certain things is key, in my opinion. I mean, I'm also another third-time college graduate. I'm also a third-time college student at Flagler College. I talk to kids all the time. So, I mean, it's just raising the awareness of what people, you know, can and should and shouldn't do. That's just, I mean, that's just for me, that's huge. So that's what I would do.
Thank you, Mr. Klovanec. And Mr. Jager, I would love to give you a couple minutes to answer question 3, since I accidentally overlooked you last time. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and unmuting yourself, we can jump back for a minute. Oh, I still have you on mute.
I guess I didn't press hard enough. Is that, you have me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, many of the subjects or topics have been covered, and I won't belabor it, but, you know, some of the things I think that are done well, I think the harbor dredging that's, you know, been maintaining our harbors by the port waterways. And then also a couple of dock projects, which I think point to my wanting to have something that joins both the recreational use as well as the commercial use. I mean, a great dock was built over by Volano, the floating dock over there, which serves you know, the restaurants over in Volano. It really helped to open up Volano quite a bit, which was suffering, and I think that was a great thing. And we have to look at other places where we can put in public docks and get people, you know, to be able to access the waterway and the land from both going out and coming in. The other, as far as things that to improve, I go back to what Jane said, the problems that you have administratively within the group itself, to police itself a little bit better and to be a little bit more professional.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jager, and I apologize once again for missing you on question 3. So moving right along to question number 5, we have, what role should the district play, if any, in resiliency planning and mitigating the effects of sea level rise, storm surge, and sunny day flooding? So Mr. Christopher Way, we will go to you to kick us off for question number 5.
Okay. This sea level rise is a pretty complicated issue. I had read over the 2017, and let me read it because it's a long one, Florida Community Resiliency Initiative Pilot Project. And in that, the city has done some research. I think I'm just going to read my answer if you don't mind. It's just, I think I can be a little more concise. Because of the size of our board and our limited budget, it'd be very difficult for us to be the point of the spear confronting the issues of sea level rise in St. Augustine. The issues we all face as a community are immense. In 2017, the Resiliency Initiative Pilot Project was created to outline the problems St. Augustine faced and possible solutions. The issues include nuisance flooding, protecting our historic downtown structures, upgrades to wastewater system, zoning changes for construction, building code changes, rebuilding restrictions in the event you lose something in either a flood zone and wanting to rebuild it, and potential legal problems, all demand attention. And as a board member, knowing the size of our board and the size of our budget, I would certainly look to cooperate with city, county, and state anywhere we could help to be part of the solution and still maintain our obligations under our charter. So we would have to be supporting and take any issues individually that pop up and see if it fits within our charter and how much funding we could give it. And that's, I mean, I think that's the most practical role that the Port and Waterway can have. Like I said, we don't have boots on the ground.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your answer, Mr. Way. Mr. Roy Jager, what role do you think the district should play, if any, in resiliency planning? You're still muted, Mr. Jager.
This is such a momentous issue and so controversial, you know, whether we really have seawater level rise or whether we don't. And to me, this is something that really takes groups to come together in a strategic alliance, and then to see what issues are really the biggest priorities going forward, and what we can do not only as the commission, but as a city, as a county, as a state. You know, this is a much bigger issue, and I don't know what real support other than providing participants to a strategic planning committee that might be established to go and help out and participate.
Muted myself there. Thank you, Mr. Jager, for your answer. Mr. Marco Clovanish, same question. What role, if any, do you think that the district should play in resiliency planning? Marco, you're muted.
Again, the role I think that the district should play is basically reaching across the aisle, working with everybody else. You know, the proper raising. Again, my biggest thing is raising awareness. I mean, you have to do this. You have to be proactive in certain areas, and if it means with other groups getting involved, talking to people that I need to talk to, as far as like county commissioners, you know, I'm at those meetings every Tuesday, talking to city councilmen, being involved in okay, if we don't have the funding, then finding another way to get it done. So, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you, and a lot of people might not, you know, they might not appreciate this. I'm not with the sea level rise. I'm just not. And global warming and climate change, I've never been with that, because I've done a lot of research in the past that, you know, there's certain areas of the world where the water's up. It's like a cycle. It all cycles. The oceans cycle through. So there's ways that we can raise, have fun drives, have certain events, you know, to gain people's trust and allowing them to put their faith in us, and maybe get, you know, if a couple donors step forward and they want to do a project that maybe we come up with, you know, maybe sump pumps in the city or a wall, or, you know, making it different ways to do it, as far as once we get to the areas is and the events, you know, occur, we learn from the past. So take the past floodings. Where did it flood? How did it flood? Where was it most, where was the flooding the worst? So basically calculate, learn from past hurricanes and past events that we've had, and try and better prevent it. You know, I mean, there's so much money, again, that goes into a lot of things rather than, you know, important things like this. So storm surges and flooding it's never a good thing. So there's got to be different precautions that we can work together with other people, as far as the county commissioners talking to the mayors and raising the awareness of this matter. So once people know, then we could settle into a role of what we're going to do as far as getting people to be more aware of it. So I don't even think we're going to be able to have a role until we have enough people on board with it, knowing, you know, that we're even trying to do things like this. So there's certain steps that we need to approach this with.
Thank you, Mr. Klobanish. I appreciate the answer here. Ms. West, same question.
Sure, thanks, Jen. I actually was honored to be part of a delegation here in Florida that consisted of politicians, policy makers, scientists, that was basically, we went over to the Delft in the Netherlands to find out how this country that exists 22 feet below sea level has managed to maintain a thriving agricultural economy and has one of the biggest ports in Europe, Port of Rotterdam, which we toured. And the fact of the matter is, one agency alone cannot fix this issue, but there are technological solutions that we need to get on board with. But you know, as Chris has pointed out, we have a limited budget and we don't have boots on the ground. And a lot of the decisions that do impact sea level rise in a negative way are being made at different agency levels, at the county, at the state level, and at the federal level. So I think our role should be very distinct. It needs to be a role of cooperation with other local agencies. And the city of St. Augustine in particular has done already a remarkable job with resiliency planning in their perils of flood in their comprehensive plan, which already recognizes, you know, two levels, the nuisance flooding and the storm surge. And they are proactively working to maintain the historic and cultural identity of our very special little city by trying to bring the entire city of St. Augustine to be resilient up to 8 feet of elevation for storm surge and nuisance flooding, which is a real problem. You know, when you cross the Bridge of Lions and you see the water lapping right at the seawall edge, that is of huge concern to our local economy. So we do need to address this, but we have a very limited role. And that should be working with our local government partners and informing them of what we are observing and making sure that this continues to be a priority issue moving forward at the city, county, and state level.
Thank you for that, Ms. West. So at this point, we have gotten a lot of questions from the audience. We're coming up to 6:30 now, but I definitely think that we should try and squeeze a couple of these in. So if you wouldn't mind, candidates, trying to keep your answers brief here. We have had several questions come in about the Summerhaven River. So I'm going to try and consolidate a couple of those together. The question says, years of work and millions of taxpayer dollars have been spent to try to restore the flow of the Summerhaven River, but time after time it gets filled in with sand and remains unnavigable. If elected, would you support continuing to spend money to try and keep the Summerhaven River flowing? And do you think it's even possible to restore it? So for this question, we will start with Mr. Roy Jager. Oh, Roy, I accidentally remuted you after you unmuted yourself. I apologize.
Okay. Now I'm on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, it's like many issues, it's a very complex issue. And, you know, that has silted. It has been, you know, many times we've tried to deal with, take the silting away, restore the river. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think part of it would be that is a solution available to us that could be permanent and done within the capacity of the dollar amount that it would cost. And I don't think we have that answer yet. So I would say it's something that you'd have to continue to study. You'd have to look real seriously at how much it would cost to do it and whether that solution would accomplish the goal.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Jager. Mr. Marco Clovanet, your thoughts on the Summer Haven River?
The first thing that I would do as far as, can you repeat that question? Because the question's not showing up.
Yeah, no, I apologize. That was an audience question, so it just came in through the chat box. They were actually
okay. What was the question?
So a lot of money and time has been spent trying to restore the Summer Haven River, but it keeps filling in with sand over and over again. So would you support continuing to spend money to try and keep it flowing? And do you think it's even possible to do that?
Well, I mean, I would first have to take a look, as far as in the past, where all this money went to. So that would be the first thing I would have to, I'd have to take a look and see where the money went, because it sounds to me like it's a project that's just, going nowhere. So, that's a tough one. I probably, if the money was going to actually fix the river and fix the problems, and I, can prove that, or talk to a couple other people that have, different ideas on it. If it was legit, then yeah, I would definitely support it. But if the money was going, in the pockets of politicians and like that bridge being dumped off the coast, then no, I'm not going to support it, because obviously, the people aren't spending the money where it's supposed to be spent. And when they mean, what do they mean? What does the guest mean by restoring it? What is their definition of restoring? I mean, there's a lot of different ways people can have opinions on restoration. I would then ask the person that asked the question, what's their definition of restoring?
Thank you, Mr. Klovanich. That's an excellent point. Ms. West, same question to you. Your thoughts on the Summer Haven River?
Yeah, I absolutely do not support continuing to dredge the Summer Haven River. Quite frankly, this benefits just a handful of property owners, and I am sympathetic to their plight. But there is a certain risk involved when you decide to buy property on the ocean or near it, quite frankly. And this has been an incredibly fiscally irresponsible project, in my opinion. Quite frankly, we just cannot dredge our way out of what Mother Nature intends to do. And Mother Nature has repeatedly filled in that river. So if the property owners there want to take it upon themselves to burden the exponential cost of continuing to dredge every time it gets filled in, then so be it. But that has to be on their dime and not on the backs of all the taxpayers here in St. Johns County. I just absolutely do not support this project.
Thank you for your response, Ms. West. Mr. Way, same question to you. Your thoughts on the Summer Haven River?
Okay. Well, growing up here, I think that the Matanzas Inlet area is probably one of the prettiest places in the state, without question. I wasn't on the board when that whole project got started. When I came on I think they were just finishing everything up. But I think this may be one of those projects that I have mentioned before that we might have got involved in when we don't have boots on the ground. It was strictly, from my understanding, the port just sponsored the permit, and it snowballed from there. I was there. I was driving home from Palm Coast early in the morning. I don't remember the date or anything, but I saw the breach, and I pulled up to the old A1A and could see the water flowing into the river. And I called the county and said, if you can get a couple of bulldozers out there in the next few hours, you can patch this breach immediately. But then they told us they had to get a permit. And anyway, make a long story short, what could have been fixed for several $1,000s worth of man hours turned into where this thing filled up with sand. And I don't even remember the total amount of the project, but it was in the millions. And you know, the homeowners there and the group that's there, I mean, they really have done a lot of hard work trying to preserve that river. And I understand that the biggest issue now was when the dredging was done, they are supposed to pull, the contract states are supposed to pull out so many cubic yards of muck. And what I think happened was those cubic yards of muck were removed, but not necessarily in the most strategic places. And some of the areas when the tide gets low, it may be a foot and a half deep and makes it unnavigable. So, I mean, that's a complex issue there. I know the port has been involved in it, and I would be very careful as to how we move forward on that project. We haven't had anybody come before the board recently concerning that project, but it's maybe an example of the port getting involved in something they shouldn't have.
Thank you for your insight on that, Mr. Way. With that, we are already a couple of minutes over time, and I want to be respectful of the schedules of all of our candidates and all of the participants as well. There were a lot of questions, unfortunately, that we were not able to get to on items ranging from channel markers being down to the St. Augustine Inlet to beach renourishment. And so I encourage all of you audience members to look up the candidates either on Facebook or on their websites and reach out to them and candidates, just so you know those are some of the topics that we weren't able to get to this evening in case you're planning on releasing any type of platform or statement for your campaign. Just so everyone knows, this recording is going to be available on our website, www.matanzasriverkeeper.org. Please feel free to share it with any other voters that are looking for more information about the candidates. And just one more reminder that in November, you're going to be voting for 2 candidates, one from Group 2 and one from Group 4. With that, have a wonderful rest of your evening, and don't forget to cast a vote for clean water in November. Thank you so much, and have a great night.